What is domestic violence? It is physical or emotional abuse used by a partner in a relationship in the attempt to control another partner. It can be put downs, name calling, isolation, keeping them from obtaining a job. It can be the threat of a violence all the way to forced sex or hitting. The abuse can be sexual, emotional, physical, or psychological. Who are the victims? Well, anyone can be a victim. It does not matter the income class, sex, race, culture, marital status, religion, or age. Although men can be victims, it is more common for a woman to be a victim. According to Safe Horizons, 1 in 4 women will be victims in their lifetime. And women between the ages of 20 and 24 are at the greatest risk of becoming victims. Now, anyone can be an abuser. Most abusers, according to NCADV, 90% of abusers do not have any criminal record. What they do have in common is that they have low self-esteem. They often take no responsibility for their actions and they minimize their behaviors, blaming other people or things, most often the victim. And in between periods of abuse, they can seem very charming and friendly in public. Many people are victims and are unaware that they're victims. They may not realize that there's domestic violence in their relationship, but do know that there's a problem. Now, awareness is needed. Awareness and education is needed to teach people about the cycle of violence. Now, when they understand that cycle of abuse, it can make it easier to survive inside the relationship, or they might realize that it's unhealthy and they need to leave. So let's take a look at that cycle of abuse. The cycle starts with tension building. The abuser becomes angry and abuse may begin. During this time period, communication breaks down and the victim starts walking on eggshells. Tension becomes too much and the victim finds themselves trying to keep the abuser calm. Then comes the incident of abuse known as an acute explosion. This can be physical, sexual, or emotional abuse. After the tension building and acute explosion, there is a period of reconciliation and calm. This is known as the honeymoon stage. The abuser will be very apologetic, but still blaming the victim for the abuse at the same time. They may make promises that it'll never happen again, or they may even buy the victim gifts. As time passes, the abuser will act like it never happened at all. Now, there may not be physical abuse in some relationships, so the cycle may be harder to recognize, but it still has deep the impacts are still detrimental psychologically. As the cycle continues, the tension building and honeymoon stages often get shorter and the periods of abuse become more frequent. When this happens, the abuser becomes more of a danger to the victim. It becomes like an addiction through traumatic bonding, and it's part of the cycle. The effects of abuse on a victim may not only cause psychological and physical harm, but at times death. Now, according to Safe Horizons, 1 in 3 homicide victims are murdered by their current or former partners every year. The psychological effects can cause mental illnesses like depression, PTSD, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, drug and alcohol abuse. This often keeps the victim in the relationship. For others, they may be fearful of their judgment due to their culture or religion or even their lifestyle choices. Some stay out of fear that they cannot escape. If they did, that the violence would become worse or they might lose custody of their children. Abuse can not only be dangerous to a victim, but it can also be dangerous to children if they're involved. According to NCADV statistics, 1 in 15 children are exposed to intimate partner abuse every year. This can become physically dangerous if a child tries to step in to protect another victim. Now, either way, it has deep psychological impacts. It can affect them in school, it can affect them making friends, and even their sleeping habits. It can cause them to get headaches and stomach aches, and as time passes, if no help is received, the females are more likely to become victims, and the males are more likely to become abusers, continuing that cycle of abuse. I have seen firsthand the pain and feelings of loss it can cause outside family members when they lose the connection with the one that they love because of isolation. The helplessness that comes with knowing there's nothing you can do or say to help them. And it's hard to see through the facade at times if you didn't already know abuse was happening. Now that we understand the cycle of violence, I will discuss how a victim can escape it. Some may leave the first time, for some it might take years, and some may never leave at all. On average, it can take a victim 12 times of trying before they actually leave an abuser, according to a Dove House advocate. The first step is always finding that inner strength and reaching out for resources. Now, this can be difficult with certain levels of isolation. Many abusers control finances, which causes a fear of being destitute. According to the USDA, DV is the third leading cause in homelessness among families. A victim must think ahead, and they need to have a safety plan. They should always have important phone numbers close by and practice safe ways to get out of the house. They should make up a code word if they ever need to call 911, and they should leave a bag in a safe place or in a safe house. They should leave a cell phone and money somewhere easily accessible, and they should go over that safety plan often. If the victim has children, they should practice on how to get the children out of the house safely with them. There are times this could put all their lives in danger. So if they have to leave the children, they should call the police right away and arrange for a temporary protective custody of the children. The abuser may try to kidnap, threaten, or harm the children as leverage to get the victim to return. Once away, it's smart for the victim to file a personal protection order, and they need to keep that order with them at all times. Once out of the situation, there's a lot of rebuilding and recovery to be done. If there's no family support system, there are shelters, and they offer legal and financial services. Now, if the victim has children, they should get custody of them within a few days. They should give a copy of that custody order to the schools and to other caretakers. The shelter often has access to counseling services, and these are available for the children as well. This is advised because it could be the one thing that stands between a victim staying free and returning to an abuser. So to sum up what I've talked about, hopefully it's now clear what domestic violence is, who the victims and abusers are. Now you should be able to recognize the cycle of abuse and its effect on its victims. You can see how deeply the abuse affects the lives and how much rebuilding has to be done. Now, this is a problem that is facing every culture, race, sex, and income class. Domestic violence is a real issue that has social and economic impacts. Safe Horizons states that DV costs $37 billion a year in law enforcement, legal work, medical and mental health treatment, and productivity loss. It also costs lives. For some, it has a deadly ending.